Thousands of Syrians poured into the streets around the world to celebrate the end of the half-century regime of Bashar al-Assad and his family over the weekend. Hours after rebels seized control of the country's capital, Damascus, the ousted leader reportedly fled to Moscow. The takeover marked the first time opposition forces reached Damascus since 2018. President Biden called it, quote, a moment of historic opportunity. The leader, possibly in control of the country's future, has ties to a group considered a terrorist organization by the U.S. and the UN. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan asked if that alternative to Assad is better on CBS Mornings, and he said this. Take a listen.
Anything is better than a regime that has brutalized and massacred its people over 50 years. There is an opportunity to build something significantly better going forward. But as you know, there are risks, too. There are risks associated with the possible resurgence of extremism and terrorism in Syria. And we are trying to attend to those risks immediately, including airstrikes that President Biden ordered yesterday against ISIS so that they can't take advantage of the situation. We're going to work with all the groups in Syria. And as President Biden said yesterday, the rebel groups, including the ones that have been designated as terrorist groups, have actually said all the right things. Now the question is, what will they do to try to bring about a better Syria?
CBS News national security contributor Sam Vinograd joins us now on what we need to know about all this. Sam, first, I want to get your reaction to what we just heard from Jake Sullivan. What do we know about this rebel group that's now controlling Syria?
This rebel group that led to the toppling of Bashar al-Assad is a designated foreign terrorist organization. That designation was made by the U.S. State Department in 2018. This group evolved out of an offshoot of al-Qaeda known as the al-Nusra Front. This group has been focused on the overthrow of Bashar al-Assad, and what remains to be seen is whether they will, in fact, govern in a democratic and stable way. And that's why Jake Sullivan indicated that their words, in which they've said the right things and they've said what the United States has wanted to hear, matter less than their actions. We do know that they are focused on establishing an Islamist state in Syria. So there are a lot of unknowns about how they will choose to govern if ultimately this group, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, does take over control of Syria. But it is important to note, we don't really know who is governing Syria right now. We know Bashar al-Assad is in Russia with his family, but it is unclear who is actually calling the shots from Damascus at this moment.
Now, Sam, the U.S. said it carried out airstrikes against ISIS operatives and camps on Sunday. They hit 75 targets. And Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin says as the situation in Syria unfolds, he said, quote, there's potential that elements in the area, such as ISIS, will try to take advantage of this and regain capability. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Well, the coalition that led to Assad's ouster was led by Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, but it is composed of a group of different groups. So there could be a power vacuum that emerges and no clear power leader in Syria for some time. Based on that, there are concerns that ISIS could try to take advantage of this moment. Now, the United States does have about 900 to 1,000 troops in Syria that are solely focused on a counter-ISIS mission. Their actions have continued unabated, as we saw with these 75 strikes over the weekend. But at the same time, there are tens of thousands of ISIS fighters and their families in camps in Syria, and there are concerns about the security and stability of those camps based upon the developments in country. So a lot of eyes are on what ISIS chooses to do in this moment and whether the safety and security of these detention camps remains in place based upon the shifting dynamics on the ground.
I want to ask you about Austin Tice, Sam. He's the American journalist and former U.S. Marine who was captured in Syria more than 12 years ago. The U.S. says finding him is a top priority. Now that the Assad regime has fallen, will it be easier now?
The signals we are getting from the White House is that, thank God, Mr. Tice is alive. President Biden indicated yesterday that he is alive. And at this point, if the opposition groups that have seized power want to cooperate, they will work with the United States on finding an exact location. That would certainly be a sign of good faith. But the U.S. administration does sound optimistic about Mr. Tice's well-being, thank goodness, and about our ability to try to bring him home. And I imagine, despite the leadership transition here in the United States, hostage recovery will remain a priority for Mr. Trump, just as it did in his first term.
All right, CBS News national security contributor Sam Vinograd, thank you so much, Sam.